Hello everyone, welcome to iExamB. So recently SEBI has concluded its board meeting that happened in Mumbai on 20th December 22, wherein 12 key decisions have been taken and proposed by SEBI, and then those 12 key decisions we will be discussing in this lecture. So let's proceed. Okay, so SEBI recently concluded its board meeting, which happened in Mumbai on 20th December 2022. So the emphasis of that meeting was on certain aspects like assessment of risk and how to mitigate those risks. Certain measures have been proposed in order to mitigate those risks and to fix the accountability of people within the system. This has become very important in order to avoid any kind of disaster events which had happened in the past, and also the ultimate objective of market regulator, that is protection of investors, and also to facilitate doing of business, the ease of doing business for the investors, various kinds of categories of investors, right? And for that matter 12 key decisions have been taken and then various guidelines have been proposed for the same. So the first very predominant decision is regarding the phase out the share buyback, right? To share buyback. So what exactly is this share buyback? There has been news about this recently regarding the Paytm share buyback, and then subsequently SEBI also has taken a decision to phase out the share buyback. Right, what it is. So share buyback is when companies sometimes they actually what they do, they decide to purchase their own shares from the open market through a certain process which is called the share buyback. So various reasons can be there for this share buyback, like undervaluation of the stock prices, and then insufficient opportunities of further investment, and excess cash is there but then insufficient investment opportunities are there, and in order to change the existing capital structure of organization, and also in order to change the proportionate holding of promoters. All these kinds of decisions can lead to buyback of shares by the respective companies, and various companies have done this in the recent past. And then there are several methods of this share buyback. That is, first is through tender offer. So here a company buys back shares from existing shareholders at a fixed price on a proportionate basis and within a given time frame by issuing a letter of offer in tender form to all the eligible shareholders. And this is through open market, like through stock exchange. So a company uses the stock exchange or the book building process to buy back shares through the open markets. So under this method, a company only buy back shares that are present on stock exchange through the nationwide terminals, and promoters are not allowed in the same process. So now the current situation is that the buyback of shares are permitted either through stock market route or through the tender offer. But the market regulator is of the view that the method of buying back of shares through tender offer is more scientific, but on the other hand through stock exchanges leads to favoritism. That's why it has actually proposed certain changes, and that is buyback done through the stock exchanges will be gradually phased out, right? And during the process of this gradually phasing out the process, so then there will be a separate window will be created in the stock exchange for this undertaking buyback till the buyback permission is there. Earlier, the utilization of funds through buyback was permitted up to 50%, but now the increase in this proportion has been done, that increased utilization of buyback funds is through stock exchange route is from existing 50%, it has been enhanced to 75%, and the timeline for completion of buyback through tender offer has been revised and it has been reduced by 18 days. Right. So these significant decisions SEBI has taken in order to actually initiate some processes so as to make it more safer for investors, or also to facilitate the ease of doing business. And for this particular decision, the amendments have been proposed in the SEBI Buyback of Securities Regulations 2018. Another very important decision is regarding the focus on market infrastructure institutions and their conduct. There have been various events which have happened in the past, like there was a major fiasco which was actually the part of various headlines for various months, which involved NSE CEO Chitra Ramakrishna, that actually proved to be a major triggering point for this outcome. So wherein SEBI has actually understood to fix the fiduciary responsibility of market infrastructure institutions like stock exchanges, clearing corporations and depository. So what has been done, what has been proposed? So the function of MIIs will be categorized under three verticals, that is critical operations, compliance, risk management and other functions, including the business development. And the resource allocation to these three verticals will be done, and more resource allocation would be towards the first two verticals. And MIIs also need to appoint the public interest directors with a background in areas of like technology, law and regulation, finance and accounts and capital markets. So they will continue to meet every 6 months, and they will submit their report to MIIs, and within 6 months and submit a report to MIIs and then to SEBI subsequently. And there has been separate code of conduct would be there for the key managerial personals, and the definition for the same will be changed to cover employees based on the importance of activities covered by them. And the sharper of code of conduct will be applicable to MIIs and governing board and committee members. And also the appointment and removal of this KMPs will be done by the respective remuneration committee, that is NRSE committee of MIIs. And MIIs will appoint a separate chief risk officer, and the performance of KMPs will be evaluated after every 6 months. This is basically done in order to fix the fiduciary responsibility on these MIIs, which are very much instrumental in the operationality of the securities market. In order to avoid any kind of disastrous event and the harm towards the overall operation of securities markets and for the investors, this decision has been taken. Another is framework for execution only platform for direct plan mutual fund schemes. So these execution only platforms are the platforms which are restricted only for execution of trades without the client receiving any information, any advice or merit about the investment. They are only execution only platform. So execution only platform for direct plans of mutual fund schemes, also there was no regulatory framework for that. They were actually they were operational in a digital mode, but there was no regulatory framework for them. So this has been announced in order to, in a bid to promote the penetration of such instruments as an investment vehicle, right? So a number of entities including the investment advisors and also the stock brokers, they offer execution services like purchase and redemption of direct plans or mutual funds through digital mode. So there are separate guidelines and regulations for investment advisors and stock brokers, but when they are providing services through this execution only platform, there is no regulatory framework for such kind of platforms. So in order to facilitate these EOP services, this framework has been announced, and wherein the entities which are desirous of providing this services in direct plans of mutual funds may be granted registration under either of the two categories. So category 1 execution only platform can be registered as an agent of asset management companies registered with MFI, and category 2 as an agent of investor registered as a stock advisor. So basically this framework will work towards, not only towards the investor protection and ease of doing business, but also will give a clarity in providing a suitable revenue model for these kinds of platforms. Right. So other is platform for risk reduction in case of disruption of trading services by a stockbroker. So whenever there are open positions for any investor during the trading working hours and while doing the trading during the trading working hours, then if there is a disruption, then it might cause harm to those investors. So for that regard, stock exchanges will introduce an investor risk reduction access platform, which is expected to be operational by financial year 23-24, and the guidelines and also the operational guidelines will be issued through different circulars in future. Another is enhanced risk management framework for stockbrokers designated as qualified stockbrokers. So certain stockbrokers are there who handle a very large number of clients till, like large in the terms of large amount of funds, client funds, and very large trading volumes. So if there is any if any possible failure of such stockbroker happen, that has the potential to cause impact on investors, and also it might prove detrimental, or it might cause a reputational damage to the Indian securities market. So to mitigate this risk, SEBI has proposed certain amendments in SEBI stockbroker regulations, existing stockbroker regulations 1992, to designate such type of stockbrokers who are big, too big, and as qualified stockbrokers. So qualified stockbrokers, after these guidelines come into force, then they will have to have a certain additional reporting requirements, and they will have to have enhanced risk management framework. So but this will actually help in reducing the systemic risk of the capital markets. And for this, SEBI has been taking certain decisions because of the past events that have happened. The Carvi episode was there. So SEBI has been tightening regulations regarding the same. But for this, adhering to these guidelines, these qualified stockbrokers will have additional compliance costs also. Right. So another significant decision is streamlining the onboarding process for facilitating ease of doing business and reducing the time taken for registration of foreign portfolio investment. So for this, amendment has been proposed in SEBI FPI regulations 2019. So FPIs are very important. So in order to reduce the time taken for granting registration to them, and in order to provide them, to facilitate ease of doing business for them, this has been proposed, and wherein there will be separate measures which would be taken. The guidelines would be issued, like in terms of acceptance of digital signatures, permitting use of swift mechanisms for certifications, etc. And SEBI issue and listing of non-convertible securities regulation 21 regarding green debt securities. So if you have observed that in the recent past, particularly few months, SEBI has been issuing various regulations, various amendments in non-convertible securities in order to strengthen the existing corporate bond market. And in this regard also, one more decision has been taken regarding the green debt securities. So green debt securities are those kind of securities wherein these are issued in order to raise funds to make an investment in certain projects which involve, like they're sustainable in nature, like wind energy, solar energy, renewable resources, investment in renewable resources. So in the backdrop of increasing intent in sustainable finance in India as well as around the globe, and with a view to align the existing framework of these green debt securities with the updated that green bond principles which are recognized by IOSCO, SEBI has provided certain measures. In the definition of green debt securities, the definition of green debt securities there in the these regulations, issue and listing of NCS regulations. So the scope for the certain activities have been listed in there, where the investments in those kinds of projects by issuing of debt securities will be termed as green debt security. So it has been enhance that definition. So now the new things have been included in terms of pollution prevention and control, eco-efficient products, introduce the concept of blue bonds related to water management and marine sector, yellow bonds related to solar energy, and transition bonds as subcategories of green debt security. So this also has been introduced, and the amendment for the same will be done in the NCS regulations. Another is participants by alternate investment funds, participation by alternate investment funds in credit default swaps. So this is actually done to provide more flexibility of managers of alternate finance, and to strengthen, in order to strengthen and deepening this corporate debt market, because credit default swaps are related to debt market. So this has been done, that participation by AIFs in credit default swap has been allowed, not only as a protection buyer but also as a protection seller. So when the debt security is issued, so it actually safeguards the buyer of that security against any default, right, by an issuer. So in this regard, this insurance is provided by a seller to a buyer on the payment of certain fee, that if there is any default by the issuer, then this seller will make good the loss. So that is just an example of credit default swap. So for that, participation of AIF is permitted. And also corporate governance norms have been issued for InvITs and REITs. So SEBI has issued corporate governance norms for REITs and InvITs, along with to align them with the corporate governance norms for listed companies, right? And provisions related to the tenure of auditor, the computation of leverage, various guidelines have been provided. And the tenure of auditor will now be till the conclusion of the 5th annual general meeting of unit holders. And then this statutory auditor of REIT and InvIT will be transferred to investor protection and education fund. I mean, this separate fund will be created by SEBI. So an amendment to SEBI and listing of non-convertible regulations to streamline appointment of nominee director and specify public issue timeline. Actually, it is done to protect the interest of investors, debenture holders. So this issue has been taken up and has been decided that issuers of listed debt securities will incorporate suitable provisions in their article of association, wherein the board of directors, they need to appoint the person who will be nominated by the debenture trustee, right, as a director in the event of default. So appointment of director in the event of default. And also the existing listed debt issuers are required to do the needful by September 30th of 2023. Right. And also there are no separate, presently there are no separate stipulations with regard to duration for which a public issue of debt securities and non-convertible redeemable preference security shall be, how the duration is not specified for which they should be kept open for public issue. So in order to deal with the inefficiency and delay in that, so this has been announced that it should be kept open for a minimum period of 3 working days and maximum period of 10 working days. So the last is about the framework for adoption of cloud services by SEBI regulated entities. So the board approved this framework for adoption of cloud services by SEBI regulated entities. So it's a principle based framework. 9 broad principles would be included in that, and the also framework highlights the these aspects which are associated with the adoption of cloud services. The framework also will deal with that. So this is basically done in order to not only to safeguard the interest, but also to safeguard the sensitive information and the country risk and disaster recovery, and of course the concentration risk. So these were the 12 key decisions which were discussed in the recently concluding SEBI board meeting. And some of that guidelines, the explanatory guidelines, elaborative guidelines and circulars regarding the same will be issued in due course. So for this, that's it. Thank you. So prepare 50% faster with iExamB, and please subscribe to the channel and don't forget to press the bell icon. Thank you.